to another episode of the Modern Manifestation Podcast. I'm your host, Bree Brown, a lettuce-hating, wine-loving, curses like a sailor, recovering perfectionist. Having thrived in a male-dominated, commission-based industry, I'm passionate about helping women boldly pursue their life goals. In this space, we build confidence with our mindset, manifestation, and spirituality. I believe that your life manifests as a result of who you are, not what you do, and that your personality creates your personal reality. Join this growing community to increase your net worth by increasing your self-worth. Now let's jump into today's topic. The following episode is a guest interview. Please note that the views expressed by my guests are their own, and their appearance on this podcast does not imply an endorsement of their values or views. The opinions expressed during this interview are conversational in nature and not intended to reflect the views and opinions of myself or Modern Manifestation. Hello, my beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Modern Manifestation Podcast. Today's guest interview is special because it falls between both Mother's and Father's Day, so I thought bringing on today's guest would be a great way for us to just think about ways that we can start unpacking our own trauma as it relates to our parents, or really healthy ways you can begin to unpack any kind of trauma. And to help facilitate this conversation, I am bringing on Catherine, a hypnotherapist who specializes in helping women heal from their toxic, emotionally immature moms. Her mission is to help women heal and build a life they enjoy. So with that, I would like to welcome Catherine to the podcast. Hello, Catherine, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Of course. Let's kick things off by discussing how you got into hypnotherapy, why you decided to bring this content to social media, and specifically why you focus around people's relationships with a toxic mother.
Yeah, absolutely. So really all of this started with my own personal struggle, healing from my own mother. There was a whole lot of drama. It took a lot of years before we eventually ended up being no contact. And even after that had happened, I was still dealing with a lot of emotional fallout from that. I wasn't able to fully move on. I knew that I wanted to, but I didn't know how. And my husband, actually I tried to use therapy. I tried BetterHelp and I was like, okay, I'm going to get someone, finally decided to reach out, and I just didn't feel like it was very helpful. And I ended up just feeling more frustrated than I was before, because I'm like, okay, this was supposed to make me better and now I'm not. So do I just have to stay like this forever? I don't know. And then my husband actually his therapist recommended hypnotherapy because he also was kind of having a similar struggle, like where therapy just wasn't resolving things like we were wanting it to. It was just kind of dancing around the problem, and it'd be okay for a little bit, and then it would just come back. And when I finally decided to meet with a hypnotist, everything changed for me. I was finally able to let go and heal some of these deep emotional wounds that I had been carrying for a while. And I was amazed. I was like, it happened so fast for me, because I think because I had done so much work, I was so ready that I just needed someone to kind of tip me over the edge, really. And that was finally like, oh, okay, this is what I've been looking for. And that experience actually then finally gave me the confidence that I needed to start posting on social media, to start doing TikTok, and to learn how to do hypnotherapy myself. And so it really came out of my own pain, my own struggle. And I'm like, I know how horrible it is to go through this on your own, to not know anybody else who's going through this. And so how can I help people who are like me, like be able to move past it like I have? And that was really where it started from. So that's how I got into hypnotherapy, and even more so just going on more of a spiritual journey that kind of goes hand in hand with that as well, which just has opened up a whole new world for me, honestly. Like, it's been really incredible what's come since I tried something that was kind of weird for me at first, which was the hypnotherapy. I'm like, oh, like, with my background, like I grew up very much in the church, was more charismatic. So like spiritual stuff was around, but it was all centered around God. And for me, when I experienced hypnotherapy, I was like, I'm like, this is what God feels like. This is what I've experienced before. And it was so familiar and so comforting. And it was also healing. And so I'm like, if I can help other people tap into that spiritual realm for themselves where they can heal, like that's what's going to be the most long lasting stuff. It's not just like superficial fixes or band-aids. Like you really have to go deep. And so, yeah, I mean, that's, I feel like that's a lot, but that's all part of it. There's so many aspects to it, but those are the main things really.
Yes, and you touched on so many things here that I feel like we just have a lot in common. I was raised Lutheran, which is pretty much like Catholic light, really, and I had a very rigid idea of what spirituality was. And it wasn't until I was an adult and going through therapy that I began to kind of reconsider my past beliefs about spirituality and religion and all of that. And a lot of the things I started tapping into, I would have thought was like blasphemous when I was younger. And when I say healing modalities, I'm thinking of like hypnotherapy and Reiki and acupuncture and plant medicines and all of these different types of energetic work or energetic adjacent work. And all of this in combination with therapy has really allowed me to unlock a new level of healing for myself.
Yeah.
And growing up, I always thought that I had to go to someone else to get that healing, that I couldn't give it to myself. I had to go get it elsewhere outside of myself. And that's why I would go to church. Or that's why I was in Bible study, because I had to go to these other places to get the healing because I didn't think I could do that for myself. And now I have this whole new perspective on these different healing modalities I can utilize, given to us by Spirit, that I can then use to do some work on myself and then also that we can do on others. So I love what you're bringing to the world of healing and to shadow work because it's so important. It's such an important conversation. And I know that so many people listening to this might be really interested in utilizing hypnotherapy as a way to heal. So for those that are listening in and they're like, okay, I understand hypnosis. I've heard about it before. Does it make you quack like a duck or something? Is it real? Is it all in your head? Do you have to be more susceptible or not? Can you just briefly describe what hypnotherapy is, what it looks like to be in trance, and how one experiences hypnotherapy?
Yeah, absolutely. I get this question a lot. And so I'm excited to address it because and that's what I tell people when they first come. I'm like, okay, this is not me controlling you kind of thing, because it is all we think of when we think of hypnosis is stage hypnosis. Like, are you going to do all the weird things? And really hypnosis, like at its core, is about helping you get into trance. And trance is something that we all go into very naturally all the time. So it's a state of intense focus. So if you've ever like lost yourself in a book or really been into a TV show or, you drove from your house to the store and you're like, how did I get here? You were in trance.
Scrolling
you were
TikTok.
Just incredibly, scrolling TikTok. Yeah. You're like, what am I doing here?
Where have the hours gone?
Yeah. Like that's trance. And so it's not a scary thing. It's really, in its purest form, it's a state of intense focus. And one of the ways, and everyone can go into trance differently. And so part of like stuff with hypnotherapists is there's different ways to help you. Like, okay, there's relaxing. Other ways are connecting to your emotions and then asking questions like, okay, well, let's dig deeper into that. And really it's about focusing. Like, if a client is feeling like, oh, I feel really angry. I'm like, okay, well, where are you feeling that anger in your body? Let's focus in on that. And that helps them give it the attention that it needs to then start resolving the issue. Because a lot of times, like, we're just so busy running around from thing to thing that we don't ever slow down. And so that's really what hypnotherapy is about, is helping you, okay, let's focus in, slowing down, getting into this, this trance state, which really is a spiritual state. It is this, like, you're connecting to, okay, this is bigger than just me and my body, and stuff. And like, and that's where all the possibilities and like your subconscious mind, like all of these things are like interconnected. And so anyways, in its purest form, hypnosis is just, okay, let's focus down. There's lots of different ways to get there. And a skilled hypnotherapist will help, there's lots of different gates, but the main thing is like, okay, let's focus so we can actually bring resolution to what's going on. And when you do that, change happens quickly. It just does. Like, because you're finally giving that the attention and the, even with shadows and stuff, like when you see it, like, you're like, oh, that's what's going on. Like the acknowledgement then allows it to shift into something else and to become something that can be more helpful. And so it's really, just helping you get unstuck.
I love that. It gels really well with something that I say all the time on my podcast, and that, frankly, my listeners are probably tired of hearing. And it's this quote that says, once you become aware of something, you cannot help but change. And it sounds like this is foundational to the work that you're doing, creating awareness so that we can shift energy and get a bit more intentional about the healing work that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that once we have that energy component down, like once you've helped someone work through that, through hypnotherapy with the shifting of the energy, the shifting of the awareness, then they can start adopting some of the behaviors that we know are more healthy and sustainable to healthy relationships. Things like boundary setting and saying no and working on not being people pleasers. So my next question is actually more about this boundary element. I know you talk a lot about toxic relationship with mothers specifically. And a question that I hear a lot when talking with people about boundaries is, well, I'm trying to set boundaries, but they're not listening to them or they're not honoring them. So the emphasis is I'm doing this thing and they're not reacting in the way that I expected them to.
Yeah.
And then people often shut down. And their excuse is, well, they're not going to be honored anyway. So why set the boundaries? So what advice would you have for those people, whether it's energetically or whether it's behaviorally? Like, what advice would you have for someone that's in that position where they have a parent who's not honoring their boundaries?
Yeah. So the most important thing when it comes to boundaries is that your boundary needs to have action and consequences. People think that it's enough to just say the words and someone will magically listen to them. And if they're an emotionally healthy, mature person who genuinely cares about you, then absolutely. They will hear what you say and, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it that way. Like, how can I make it right? And they will jump because they care about you and they want to maintain the relationship. And the difference when you're dealing with like toxic or emotionally immature people, no matter who it is, parents or not, you need to realize that because of their own wounding, because of their own stuff, they cannot hear your words for anything except an attack. That's how it gets perceived to them. So they go into like high alert, stuff like DEFCON 50, like we need to like man the battle stations, protect ourselves, and then launch the missiles. Like that's where they're coming from. And so if your boundaries aren't being received well, then that's why. That's what's happening here is they're not in a good place. They're not healthy enough. They're like emotionally healthy enough to be able to meet you where you are. And so then knowing that, like, so that's a big thing is realizing like, okay, they just can't hear me and that's okay. Like, it's not your job to make them hear you. So many people are like, but I want them to understand.
Yes.
And they just
understand
what
I'm saying.
Yeah. It's and I mean, that's a basic human need. Like, I want you to hear me and understand where I'm coming from. And these people, because of their own, once again, their own wounding, their own like stuff, they just can't. And so what helps people like that understand, and not just like, not that it's us and them, but just to bring understanding, like if you're communicating with an emotionally immature person, you need to have actions to back up what you're saying because they're not going to hear the words, but they will respond to your actions. So if your boundary is, Mom, I need you to call before you come to my house, and she shows up at your house, you have the door locked. So she can't just walk in. And that's not you being mean. It's enforcing your boundary with an action. And I think that's where a lot of people get messed up, or they, like, well, I just tried boundaries and it didn't work. And I'm like, but what did you do? Like, there needs to be.
Walk me through this.
Yeah. Like, so what? But, well, I just told them. Okay. And then they didn't listen. Okay. So, but then there needs to be an action, or there needs to be a consequence. Like, okay, since you violated my boundary, now you don't get as much access to me. And people struggle so much with this because they're like, oh, I feel like I'm being bad or I'm being mean. And you're not. It's you. It really comes down to you valuing yourself enough to stand up for yourself, no matter who it is. People think, oh, well, it's my mom. Yeah, it is your mom, and she should treat you better. Like, oh, it's my dad or it's my sibling. Yeah, I know. And that's really, and it sucks that they can't care about you and see you where you are and see how hard you're trying. But that's not your job. Like, your job is to protect yourself, to protect your family. That's your responsibility now. And so that's where healing from your parents especially is such a complex issue. There's so many aspects to it because it affects everything. It really does.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but going back to like, if you're setting boundaries, so having an action in place to back it up. And then if the boundary is crossed, like having a consequence. So like, I have an example, I think it's in my guide, where it's like, Mom, I need you to stop posting pictures of my kids on Facebook. And that was personally, that was one of mine where I'm like, if you just let me know before you post a picture, like I just want to know what's going out into the world. And if she can't do that, if she can't say, oh yeah, of course, or I'll check with you, or whatever that boundary looks like for you, if she does it, if she posts the pictures on Facebook, then she doesn't get pictures anymore. That is a natural consequence to her crossing that boundary. And so it's really, you have to think about it like kind of like you're gentle parenting a toddler, or just parenting in general, like because they're doing something that isn't okay. And so there's a consequence, like, oh, you crossed the boundary. That sucks for you, and you can be like genuinely be like, oh, that's too bad. Like now you don't get this, like you don't get the ice cream. You don't get to spend time with this person, whatever it is. But it's not you doing anything to them. It's their choices are leading to these consequences, to this disconnect in your relationship. They get to choose. So that's the biggest thing when it comes to boundaries. You've got to have actions backing it up. You've got to have consequences. Otherwise, you're just wasting your breath and you'll be really frustrated. It's going to suck.
You mentioned the feeling of guilt whenever someone places a boundary and then their parents push back on that. And I read something a while ago, might have been in the book Set Boundaries, Find Peace, where she talked about how a lot of immature parents create kids that are people pleasers because they have outbursts or they have this
100%.
emotional explosion, this trauma that you had to deal with. And so a lot of us are walking around as people pleasers as a result, or as a result of our conditioning, really, conditioning that required us to betray our own needs for the sake of peace in the house. And so, of course, when we start putting ourselves first, when that's not what we've done in the past, we're going to have this extra baggage. We're going to feel guilty because we're not going to think that that's right or normal because it contradicts our trauma. And so you really have to work that out. And I have to assume that's a lot of what you do as well, is working out how to get to that core of trauma in order to help people get that sense of prioritizing themselves first and foremost. And really falling in love with themselves enough to be able to tell their parents, hey, I understand that you don't like this, and here's what it is anyway. Here's the action. Here's the consequence. Take it or leave it.
No, the guilt is huge. It is the biggest thing that keeps people from setting boundaries. And then if people have gone to the point of no contact, it's what's going to drag them back in every time. Because I feel bad. I feel like I did something wrong. And so, I talk about that a lot actually, because really it's this belief that you formed in childhood. It's like, oh, well, it's my job. It really comes down to like, I feel responsible for managing my parents' emotions. And when you believe that, like at the core of who you are, whether you realize it or not, like, of course you're going to feel bad. Oh, well, I did this and it made mom sad. Oh, I did something wrong. No. Your mom chose to feel upset about it. She chose to throw that fit. She's a grown-ass person, and she's had her whole life to work through this. And just because she never chose to do it doesn't mean it's your fault. And so, it's that feeling of responsibility. Oh, it's my job to help her understand, to help ease her pain. And when I tried to do that, it just made things so much worse. Makes things so much worse when you take responsibility for how someone else feels. You can't. And really a lot of what I do also is helping people get like healthy emotional distance where you get to realize I am me. I can only manage myself. And something that they choose to do has nothing to do with me. And I can be okay and I can be at peace regardless of how they respond to my boundaries. Like when you can really get to that place, like it's so powerful. And that's where you feel unstoppable because you're like, oh, like they, like I've had clients before that like, my mom threw a fit and I was just fine. I was able to be calm. I was able to be exactly who I wanted to be. And I'm like, yeah, because you were able to finally like separate yourself from her, get out of that emotional enmeshment where you're feeling everything she feels, like, and it's empowering because you're able to just be yourself. You're able to set those boundaries and feel at peace. And that's the best part. Like, that's where everybody wants to be, right? You're like, oh, I don't know how I'm ever going to get there. I can't even imagine that. I'm like, well, try. Like, really think about it. Like, not just, oh, that's too hard. Like, no, really, what would it be like to feel at peace no matter what your mom does? And when you kind of marinate on that and open up that possibility, anything can happen.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I feel like at a certain point when you've set boundaries and you've really gotten to that place, you're experiencing emotional regulation. And it's so freeing when you finally get there because you're like, oh, is this what it's been like this whole time?
Yeah.
But it was never modeled for most of us with our parents. I don't want to say most of us. I would say a lot of the people that just happen to be in my sphere, at least, we all seem to band together when we had toxic parents.
Yeah, we do.
And the really cool thing is that if you can set a boundary with a parent, which is arguably one of the most difficult relationships we'll have to navigate in life, or at least definitely one of the more influential relationships, then you can probably do that with anyone moving forward. And I think that's one of the great things about having so much information coming out of something like social media. Yes, it could be too much and overwhelming, but people have more access to learning about things like therapy and attachment styles and what a healthy relationship could look like. That's why I'm really excited that spirituality is becoming more of like this broad term and less focused on like religion and what rules are you following within that subsect of religion, but and more so, what are you doing for yourself as a spiritual being to help you heal, to help you have a better quality of life so that you can have that internal peace so that, you know, when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, so you can get to self-actualization. And that's the one thing I really love about spirituality is it's giving us all permission to start to dive into this kind of stuff and figure out what do I need? And it gives us permission to ask that question without feeling guilty. And you still will at first, but there used to be the narrative that doing this kind of stuff was selfish. You should be focused on your family and other things. And I think that women are starting to feel more empowered in this space of spirituality to be able to figure out their own needs. And I think what you're doing is very much helpful to people entering into this space and helping them define what it is that they need to work on and what they can release. And then that's going to have these ripple effects and generations down the road because you're going to now have parents that are emotionally regulated. And then their kids may not have to do this work, or maybe they will to a lesser extent. But I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about what you're doing.
Yeah, it is really cool to think about because so many, I think because some of the damage that was done has been so great. You know, and then again, there is that more like awareness and people like, well, no, I can do something about it. And I think that's really where it's like that empowerment, like, okay, you don't have to stay stuck. It doesn't have to be this years and years of struggling and striving like I thought it was. And I think that does come with like, getting into these different modalities, like doing like, you know, stuff like hypnotherapy is like getting into like your subconscious mind. And then, which is also like that kind of like higher spiritual plane where you kind of like even can access like quantum realm stuff where everything's just right there. And so it's like almost that, like, if you can imagine it and you can feel it, like you can have it. And it's really not this far off, like, oh, well, you know, in 10 years, maybe I'll start to feel better. You know, it's like, no, like you could feel better in a couple weeks. You could feel better today, you know, like guiding yourself through and like, and really, like, and being willing to let this stuff go and not that it, you know, to minimize at all because everything that people experience is so valid and important, but you can't hold on to that and let that be your identity. You have to be able to let it go and move on. Okay, but who am I really underneath all of this stuff that I've experienced, underneath these layers of pain and misunderstanding and stuff, like what's really been inside of me this whole time? And that's, like when you can access that, you know, like, wow, like your world opens up. It's a totally different place. And and that's what happened for me. It was like, oh, when I was finally able to like get past all the stuff that I was seeing, all the filters and things that I was seeing, I'm like, oh, I can finally like be more of my authentic self. And this is what I want to do with my life. And here I am, so it's just really cool how it happens. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love how you touched on the quantum world as well, because that very much ties in with manifestation. And I
Yeah.
always talk about we manifest our identities, and our
Mhm.
identities are made up of our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. And that's very much driven by a lot of the things that are going on in our subconscious. We basically program our subconscious with those
Yeah.
thoughts, emotions, and behaviors over time. And a lot of things were picked up in our subconscious from our parents over the years. These people that
Yeah.
we've talked about, many of them, I should say, are emotionally immature, and so there's some imprints going on within us. And just like you talked about,
Mhm.
it's clearing a lot of that up. So it's not only going to make you more healthy as an individual with being able to handle your own set of traumas and being able to move past that, it's also helping you get the things you want in the future with the manifestation aspect of it. It's like you're doing the clearing and the
Yeah.
cleansing of it all so that you then have a blank slate to be able to build upon and to be able to create the sort of life that you really want to experience, instead of experiencing what baggage you came with because of your
Mhm.
circumstances in the past. So I love that you're really like creating, you're priming someone's life really for them to be able to go manifest the things
Yeah.
that they want.
Yeah, yeah, I know. And I think I'm just kind of realizing more and more like that really is kind of what it, like it starts
Hmm.
off with, okay, you have a toxic mom, you can't move past it and you're stuck in this like cycle. So,
Hmm.
okay, well, let's help you get out of that. And then once you're out of that, like, what do you want? And like, and
Hmm.
that it's kind of, I've noticed it's almost like a catchphrase. It's like healing so that you can build the life that you want, like, or so you can
Hmm.
actually enjoy your life, because so
Hmm.
many people are like, well, I just feel stuck. I have to take care of my mom for this, or I have to do this. Do you?
Yeah.
Do you like really though?
Right.
And they're like, well, yeah, of course I do. No, but do you? And challenging these beliefs, like
Uh-huh.
that's a lot. That's a big part of it too, is challenging, because it's easy to see someone else's like beliefs. I'm like, oh, I can see how that's keeping you stuck. So is that really something that you need to hold on to? Oh, well, I guess I don't. Okay, cool. So if you're able to let that go, then what can you welcome into your life instead? That's a lot of it too. It's like, okay, so clearing out, yeah, like what you're saying, clearing out the junk, and like, okay, so what are we welcoming instead? What are we
Hmm.
making room for? Because you deserve to enjoy your life. You deserve
Yeah.
to be surrounded by people who love and care about you. So
Hmm.
let's clear out the stuff so you can welcome that into your life. It's really, yeah, it's just amazing. It really is.
It is amazing. And in talking about boundaries, we have them regardless of whether or not they're put in place. But when we
Yeah.
don't acknowledge our own boundaries and what they are, we get resentful and we get angry. And so we're not
Yes.
able to enjoy our lives. And I remember years ago, I think I was talking with my therapist at the time, and I was just talking about going home for the holidays. And I was like, oh, I'm just so annoyed. Christmas is coming up, and I
Oh,
just really
yeah.
don't want to have to go home. And she asked that exact question. She was like, well, why do you think you have to? And I was like, well, that's what you do. Like I had that
Yeah.
belief that like as a kid, you were supposed to go see the parents for the holidays. And there's also this social idea that if you don't have kids, you should be the one traveling to other people.
Right.
And then that was the first year I looked at Evan and I was like, oh my God, we don't have to go. And I got kind of excited and I was like, oh, like that
Yeah.
feels kind of nice to say. And it was like this, in a way, it was like a rebellious moment of being like, oh, we don't have to subscribe to the societal norms, the rules of behavior. And that gave us permission to start questioning everything, really. What weddings
Yeah.
do we really want to travel for and spend money on going? And what relationships do we really want to invest in? Not because we think we should, but because they're meaningful to us. And that really created this catalyst for us asking that question in almost every area of our life. And then asking ourselves, okay, well, where are we not honoring what we need and honoring our own
Yeah.
boundaries, and where are we ignoring what our inner self is asking for in order to like meet the societal norms? And it's funny, after every holiday I'd be exhausted because I'd just be so resentful the whole time I was there, because I didn't actually
Yeah.
want to be there. I was just there because I thought I should be there. And it's never a good reason or way to ever spend quality time with someone, because they're
No.
not going to enjoy your presence because you're not in a good space, and you're not going to enjoy being there because you didn't want to go in the first place. Whereas now when we engage with our family, it's intentional and we only go when we choose to go. And it's a very different energy interacting with them. And I think it's funny because at first people were very resistant to our boundaries and setting them and telling them what we were going to do and the consequences,
I
et
can
cetera.
imagine.
Yeah. I mean, my parents, not emotionally regulated, very immature people. But what's interesting is all of a sudden, it took a couple years, to be honest, but all of a sudden I started seeing them start to have a bit more courage to do the same for themselves. Like they felt like in seeing us do it, that they had permission to do it too.
That's
And
cool.
they knew that we would respect that for them because we're doing it for ourselves and they knew we wouldn't judge them. So it was kind of beautiful to see all these other people in our lives slowly start to open up and be like, oh, that's allowed. Oh, well, then I'm going to go do this. And I'd be like, great, that's awesome. I remember having a conversation with a friend recently where she was like, oh, I have to go to this work event on a Saturday because of business development, et cetera. And I was like, well, do you have to? And she was like, well, what do you mean? And I was like, just saying go. You can't go. And it was, and then after that conversation, she would randomly text me and be like, guess what? I just said no to this other calendar invite and I didn't give them a reason. And it was just like this beautiful, people start to blossom in front of you. So it's like you're doing the really hard, uncomfortable work, sitting in that discomfort by setting these boundaries and looking out for yourself and helping you get to that healthier state of life. But in doing so, you're actually giving everyone else around you a beautiful gift because you're giving them permission to at some point consider doing that for themselves. And not everyone will, but it's really cool to see some people harnessing that.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the biggest thing is like, I don't know, it feels so cheesy, but it's like, yeah, like your actions really do. They speak so much louder than your words ever could. You could tell someone all day long, it's okay, do what you need, put yourself first, but then you actually do it. And they're like, oh, that's what that looks like. Well, I want to do that, and it really is. I love that you said that. Like, it is a beautiful gift that you're giving people. It's like, no, you have room to be you outside of all those expectations, all that stuff. And I like what you said about like resentment and stuff. So many people, the anger, the resentment, the like, I didn't get this, and remember, and I understand. Like I have so much compassion for that, but also you are still a powerful person, and you can still choose to get out of that. It might take you a little longer, depending on your situation, but you're always a powerful person. You always have the option. And so, and it is scary to be the first one. It is scary to be like, okay, well, we're not going to come to Christmas, and just like, let's see what happens. But it is actually, I think I'm going to do doing like more of a workshop. Like, no, this is how you set a boundary. This is, don't get in an argument. Don't, this stuff. Cause people they feel so much obligation. They feel so much pressure to show up to the thing that they hate it. They do. They don't want to be there. They're like, this is a waste of my time. And it's like, then stop going. Oh, I should. If we could just erase shoulds from people's vocabulary, they would be so much happier. You'd be so much happier.
Absolutely.
Like, no, if you're saying I should do this, okay, no, but like catch yourself and say, okay, why? What makes me feel like I should be doing this? Because there's an unconscious belief. There's something you picked up that, oh, this is my job.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it though? Nah, probably not. Probably not.
Yeah. And that's really a game changer too for helping you get clarity on your priorities as well. Because whenever you start asking that question of yourself and you change the I should for I want to, or I'd like to do this, or I don't want to do this, it helps clear things up for you. Because there are times when I don't necessarily want to do something and I might say I should do this and I don't really want to do it. But when I rephrase it, I'm like, well, that's not really true. I don't want to say I don't want to do it because I value this relationship. And so I'm going to instead say, well, I want to do it because I value this person, instead of like saying I should do it. And that's like a very different energetic feel to it. It's like one feels a little like helpless, like, oh, I just should do this. It's like you're being dragged along. Like this is just something that you need to do with your shackles on. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the other one is I want to do this because I value this relationship. It's like you might, in the back of your mind be like, oh, it's like a should thing, but changing it to that narrative allows you to show up better for that person as well. And so I
Absolutely.
completely agree. Stop shoulding all over yourselves. We need to stop,
Yeah.
cut that word out,
It's
and
just
just
not
own.
helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm sure you deal with that a lot in your line of work. People saying that exact expression, I should,
Uh-huh.
XYZ.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. All the time. All the time. It's like, no, like it's amazing what happens when you give yourself permission to
Mm-hmm.
honor what you want, like what you want, what you feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big thing where people, especially, like the people pleasers, oh, well, it's my job to, make sure other people are happy. There can be such a disconnect between even knowing, like, how do you even start to know what you want? And it really comes with like honoring yourself and taking that time and just like taking a moment, like just what do I want? Even asking yourself
Yeah.
out loud and then trusting what you hear,
Mm-hmm.
and I was telling a client this yesterday. I was like, ask yourself these questions. And then the first voice that comes, that's probably like your truest answer. And then right after it is going to be all the conscious reasons why, no, because this and that and all these reasons. That's all crap. That's all just like, that's just bad programming. Like, and that's okay. Like that
Mm-hmm.
served you for a while, but what are you really wanting? Like to connect to your like truest, most authentic self. Like, no, what do you want? And then give yourself permission to listen and to
Mm-hmm.
act on it. It's a life changer.
Mm-hmm.
It will absolutely change everything.
Yes, which aligns beautifully with what I've heard about intuition, that it's often that first voice you hear, that inner
Yeah.
voice. You've also talked about clients wanting closure, but they usually don't have emotionally resilient parents who are able to give that to them. And so then they're having to create that closure for themselves, which for many of us can be pretty disappointing because we then know that we'll never get that closure from our parents directly. But even if they tried to give us our closure, our inner child may not receive exactly what it is they're looking for from them.
Oh, yeah.
But we can give exactly what we're looking for to ourselves. And so circling back to your work around hypnotherapy, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine that this could be an example of something that could be addressed through trance-like states where you can give your inner child that closure that they need, the exact thing that they're looking for. In other words, you can give yourself exactly what your trauma is looking for, or the answer it needs, or the feeling it needs, the trance-like state it needs in order to heal.
Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit more about your process within hypnotherapy and how quickly it might help someone heal from past traumas, or how it might help them heal from past traumas?
Yeah. So there is no cookie cutter answer for that because everyone needs something different. Like there's a lot of common things that, there's a lot of common wounds and different things that come up over and over again that, need to be addressed and taken care of. But so for everyone, I think what I love so much about this kind of work is that it's so unique to the individual and what comes up for you. So as we're, like as I'm talking with someone like, okay, so what's the biggest hurdle for you? Like, what's this problem? And as you dive into it, oh, okay, so it's connected to this. And so when you can get into that trance, like, like spiritual state, and you can, whatever it looks like, because it looks different every time for every single person, like depending on the different visualizations or the emotional thing that they're needing or whatever, which it's fun for me because it keeps it interesting, right? So it's never like, oh, well, we're just going to go through this formula. Like, no, it's so unique to the individual. But what happens is when you're in that space, like you will start feeling a change automatically because you're visualizing it, you're feeling it, like you're in it. You are making the changes. There's things moving. And then what's really cool about that is when you come out of that, trance-like state, your subconscious mind is still hard at work. It is still, okay, well, we're going to tweak this. We're going to rearrange these, different neural pathways. And so that you can handle events differently. And so it really, like, there is that immediate change. There is many times instant relief. Like, oh, wow, I feel so much better. And sometimes you don't even have to go super deep into trance. It's just paying attention and shifting things a bit that brings so much physical relief. Because a lot of these emotions, specifically with parents, it's so emotional. And there's such a physical reaction in your body that, like, okay, let's deal with that first. That's usually a lot of those first stuff. Like, okay, let's just get you to a place where you can breathe.
Yeah.
Because this is big. So anyway, so like I said, there is initial relief, and then also you'll notice in the days and the weeks to come that you're responding to things differently because of the work you did in that focused place. And it's not about you making it happen. There is a faith element to it, trusting that I did work then and it's taken care of, and I can trust and I can notice how things are different now. Like I had a client a few weeks ago, and her big thing, she's like, I just want to feel calm. Like my mom comes and she does all this stuff and I feel so angry. And I'm like, all right, well, let's work on that. And her mom actually showed up at her house like an hour after our session. And
oh, wow.
And I'm like, had another confrontation. I was like, oh my gosh, and she was like, I was so calm. I was able to do exactly what we had talked about. She was really upset, but I was able to manage myself. Like all these positive resources, all these positive emotions that we had downloaded, they were there. They were ready for her to use right when she needed them. Obviously, I'm not going to say, oh, everyone's going to have that exact experience, because everyone's different. Like there's so many factors, but there is that initial. And then because it's so deep, it just shifts a lot of things a lot more quickly than you realize. And so that's part of why I like it too. I'm like, all right, you're not twiddling your thumbs like, oh, okay, when is this going to kick in? Stuff like, no, like I feel different. Right. Now I feel empowered. And now you have all these positive thoughts and resources and things empowering you to do exactly what you wanted. And it's really fun. So,
yeah, beautiful. In addition to helping someone work through a lot of their past traumas, are you also doing installations of positive things and positive 100%. Ideas and habits? And
oh, yeah. Yeah. No, everything that I do, something I'm very conscious about doing is not just scooping out all the negative stuff. I'm like, okay, no, we're going to absolutely put in positive things. What do you want instead is something that I ask a lot. And because, and it gets you into that kind of dreaming state of like, oh, what's possible? Like the potential that's there. But yeah, that's so important, because if you just scoop out the bad stuff, you're like, okay, great, have fun. And they're like, well, what do I do now? Like,
yeah, exactly.
You have to.
I'm net neutral.
Yeah, I know. And some people, that's exactly what they want. They're like, I just want to feel blank. When my mom talks to me, blank, nothing there. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do it. Like, all right. But also but what comes with that? Oh, well, usually I would feel calm and I would feel peaceful. Yeah, you would. So let's install that. So that's exactly it. It's really scooping out the bad and then giving those positive resources, building up that new identity. Like, no, instead of coming from this place of fear or scarcity or I don't know what to do and like that freeze or that fight or whatever it is, like, no, this is your new foundation. Your new foundation is peace and love and like connection to yourself. And that's where it really is. It is so transformative and stuff. Like it really is helping you connect to you underneath all the stuff. So installing is huge.
I love that. So for anyone that's listening in, if they don't have access right now to someone that can do the hypnotherapy work, or maybe they're on a budget, or they are just trying to dip their toe into this, is there anything they can be doing for themselves at home in the meantime to help them do some of this work for themselves while they wait to be able to meet with someone like yourself in a more formal setting?
Yeah, really. I do have a toxic mom recovery guide, which is, it is kind of like, okay, this is how you set boundaries. It's more in depth on kind of what we talked about here, but then also dealing with that emotional healing aspect of it. And there are some different exercises there where I walk you through, okay, this is how we're going to start to release some of that guilt or that shame and rebuilding your identity. So that's a great place to start. And then, so if you're at home and you're like, okay, I want to start digging into this work for myself, really journaling is a great way to do that. There are lots of YouTube videos out there also on hypnosis and self-hypnosis, which really, hypnosis sounds fancy, but essentially it's guided meditation. And so even listening to a guided meditation is going to help you start connecting and give you practice on connecting to that trancy spiritual state. So that's where I would start if you're like, okay, I don't know what to do. Like just start even like dipping your toe into that arena, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get into that place, like things will naturally come up, whether they're big or they're small, or just kind of like thoughts and everything. It's going to help you see yourself a bit more clearly. And so being able to journal through that, okay, I was having this thought, and to honor that. I think that's the biggest thing, is to honor what you're feeling. You don't have to completely like dive in like, well, I feel sad. Oh, it's like, no, like mindfully holding that sadness and then asking yourself, what does this sadness need? What do I need and stuff. It is really connecting and giving yourself that validation, that love, that comfort that you wanted from your parent or from whoever in that moment. And that can be so incredibly healing. So yeah, if you can't meet with someone, like that's a great way to do it, is to just start, therapizing yourself, really, like, okay, let's dig this, and to genuinely like just hold space for yourself and to be that like comforting, loving place is going to help you start working through that stuff. Because like I said, like in that space, change it happens quickly, it's deep, and it's, it's helpful to have someone to guide you along, but you are able, to connect to that, greater spiritual energy, whatever you want to call it, to help guide you through that. So you don't, you're not stuck if you can't access that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much. So where can people go to get in contact with you if they're interested in learning more about the hypnotherapy that you offer, any services, programs that you have coming up? Where's the best place for people to get in touch with you?
Honestly, the best place is TikTok or Instagram. I'm on there all the time. And so I've got my link tree and everything there. But yeah, everything's on my TikTok and on my Instagram. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any DMs and answer questions and stuff. Like, it's always really fun to connect to people and help them. Yeah, just help them get to a better place. Like, nobody should go through this alone. And sometimes it can feel so isolating. And I get comments all the time. I thought it was just my mom. Like, it's not. It's really not.
Just you.
There's so many.
Yeah. Well, Catherine, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
This has been extremely enlightening for myself, and I'm sure for the guests as well. And also a huge thank you to my listeners who have tuned into today's episode. And if you're looking to get in touch with Catherine, I will link her website and her social media profiles within the show notes so that you can easily find them. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us today. Have a fantastic rest of your week, and we will catch you in the next episode. Until then, go out there and manifest some miracles. I hope y'all enjoyed today's episode. If you want to check out the show notes, head over to www.themodernmanifestation.com/blog. If you're loving this podcast, please drop me a review, share this episode with a loved one, and follow me on Instagram @modernmanifestation. I love y'all so much, and thanks for listening.